Hi, and welcome to the SJ Childs Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs. SJ Childs Show brings value to families through education, resources, and lots of laughs. You can find us on our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can also find our special children's books at sjchilds.org. Thank you for all of those who have hosted me on your podcasts. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to the SJ Childs Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today our special guest is Jen Schwartz, and she is a counselor, a life coach, family life coach with a company called Third Eye Family Solutions here in Utah. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for the invitation.
Yes, I am excited to talk to you today about the services that you provide and, really get families an idea of some other sources of support that they can go to. Tell us a little bit about your company and where you're at, kind of how you got started, maybe.
Sure. Well, my company, as you said, is Third Eye Family Solutions. I've actually only had my private practice for about 1.5 years, but I've been in the world of coaching and counseling and, just that whole world of it for about 20 years now. Actually, it's longer than that. Sometimes, when you do those things, you're like, oh, it's only been 10 years since this. And you realize, no, it's been more like, so it's actually closer to 25 now that I think of the math. And I personally do, so there's two of us at the clinic. There's myself and my partner, Jamie. She's an LCSW, and I am a CFLE, which is a Certified Family Life Educator. And so I work with individuals, couples, kids, teens, families, kind of all over the place, which is great. Keeps my days interesting. I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. But I work from both a counseling and coaching perspective. So unlike what people are often used to with counseling, people usually leave my office with homework, assignments, things to go try out at home or try out with their partner, try out at work, wherever their issues are. And really, we're working with solution-based. That's what we're doing, right? We're looking for solutions for problems. And yes, of course, because I also do counseling, I spend plenty of time just listening to problems and everything else. But at the end of the day, if you can't go out and make some changes and improve the things that aren't working for you, what's the point, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that those services are so valuable and so needed in our society and always have been, but more importantly today, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, when COVID happened last year, I, like everyone else, moved my business totally online for telehealth, kind of things sort of shut down for a minute. And then, of course, people started experiencing more mental health issues, more family dynamics issues. When you're used to that the kids go to school in the morning and they come home in the afternoon and you spend a couple hours rushing around to soccer practice and a quick dinner before bed, it's a little different than being all day, every day at home together.
Yeah.
So family dynamic issues became a big, big part of my practice at that point, where people were calling me going, I don't know how to do this. What do I do now? How do I handle this and this and this and this that I've never really had to deal with before?
Wow. So did you find yourself having to implement like new plans? Did you sit down and kind of put together kind of a new, an outline, a loose outline you could follow with these types of calls?
It's so individualized. Yeah. I can't really do that, right? I mean, I have certain things like with couples, I use Dr. John and Julie Gottman's work when I'm working with couples, right? So I sort of have a structure. And with family dynamics, I come mostly from an attachment-based perspective with families. So I sort of have, kind of these general places, platforms, spring off of. Yeah. But everybody's so different and so individualized. Although the funny thing is, I find that my weeks tend to have themes where my clients will show up and it seems like one week everybody needs to hear and to talk about boundaries.
Yeah.
And the next week, every family is dealing with, okay, well, the reason your kids are resisting the rules is because you created them and put them on the kids rather than getting them involved, right? Mm-hmm. Like every week seems to have a bit of a theme like that. And so usually by the end of the theme, as I'm sitting there and somebody goes, well, I just feel like they walk all over, and I go, oh, it's boundaries conversation again. Okay, here we go. Right? Whatever that is.
Yep, get steamed up for that one, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I think it's so important, these types of things that we provide for families, because a lot of families, like we were talking about before, don't know that these resources are available for them, don't know how to find these types of resources. So,
Hmm.
if you find that you're coming up against anything like that, reach out to me, reach out to Jen, and we can help you find some more resources for your family and working through those kinds of dynamics and things like
And
that.
sometimes it's just knowing, what is this thing called, right? So there's
Yeah.
a modality I work with called TheraPlay, for example, and it's attachment-based play therapy where I'm working with the caregiver and the child together, and we're building or rebuilding or repairing connections between the two of them. And it's a parent could be really intuitive and go, I really need to build a stronger attachment and connection with my child. But you go to Google that, and what do you find? If oh, I need somebody who works in TheraPlay, great. That's easy because people have that on their profiles, right? People have
Yeah.
those on their web pages to say, I'm trained in TheraPlay. Now you know what you're looking for.
And tell me a little bit more about that, because I have a lot of families with special needs. And I think that that is something that, we kind of do even in an ABA setting, is that more real, naturalistic play type of
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah. Well, even when I'm not working in TheraPlay specifically, everyone I work with who's under the age of about 12, we're usually doing some version of play therapy, whether it's art, whether it's actual play in the playroom. So we have 3 rooms at our office. Well, 4, our waiting room, right? And we each have our individual offices, and we have a playroom. And, with TheraPlay in particular, it really is about specific directed activities that do 3 things. One, they create challenges for the child. So, you might do something and then you do the same thing and make it a little harder so that they can see success, for example.
Mm-hmm.
A second thing is to create connection with the caregiver. So as the counselor in that situation, I'm constantly pointing, mom and child, dad and child, grandma, child, whoever that primary caregiver is, I'm pointing them back to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying things like, wow, mom, your boy is so strong. So that she goes, oh my gosh, yes, you're so strong. And he hears, wow, I'm strong.
Mm-hmm.
Mom thinks so, right? It's one
Yeah.
thing for me to say it. It's a whole nother thing when mom or dad says it,
Yeah.
right? So challenge is one, connection is the other. And then the third is just engagement, right? How
Yeah.
are we getting the two of them to work together? Those are the 3 big things that come through TheraPlay. It's a lot of fun. I have pretty much the minimum level training in that particular modality, right? But it is a lot of fun when it works, or when I work with it, rather. It always works.
Yeah.
And even just the most basic pieces of it that I use, even when I don't have the parent in the room with me, there's a little exercise they do. It's punching newspaper, right? So you have a child where you're directing their energy and their focus, and they're punching their hand through a piece of newspaper, and you're teaching them some self-control,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very specific the way we do it, right? I don't want to get punched.
Yeah.
So we have to have really specific rules around it and how we do it. Punching through a piece of newspaper is something anyone can do at any
Yeah.
age. And it's fun to then add challenge, right? Like, ooh, you punched through 2 layers. Let's see if you can punch through 4 layers of newspaper, right? And they see themselves like winning this game. And if I have the caregiver in the room, we're doing that whole like, wow, mom, look how strong this little girl is. She's amazing. Your girl is so strong, right?
Yeah.
Um, just little activities
Oh, I
like
think
that. And
that's
there's all kinds
powerful.
of things. There are all kinds of things in TheraPlay that are designed for one-on-one. There's things that are designed for whole families, where you have maybe one child's really in therapy because they need it, but we're going to bring the whole family in so we can connect with us all. As you know, you said you have a lot of families with kids with special needs. The other children have to get engaged in that,
Yes.
right? Not as
Yes.
caregivers, because they're not the caregivers, but they have to get engaged in ways that work. Whether they're older, younger, same age, it doesn't matter. They need to have positive interactions with that sibling so that
Yeah.
they develop a positive relationship as well.
I 100% agree with that. We have a son with autism who's 11. We have also a daughter who's 9, and she is his little caretaker, right? And
Mhm.
she's always involved. We've always, involved her in the, understanding, because let's be realistic. She may be taking care of him someday. And if
She
they don't
might.
have
Yeah.
that bond and that closeness and that relationship, that trust relationship,
Yeah.
then that's not going to be, good for either of them. So I really like what you said about engaging the parents. That's one thing I tell, parents that I do some coaching for too, is that find out your child's interest. It doesn't, sorry if you don't like it, you're an adult, get over it. You don't
Right.
like Minecraft, suck it up.
Yeah.
Play for 15 minutes every single day. Your kid
Yeah.
will be so happy. They'll be so proud of themselves. Let them show you what they're great at and support that. And really, that's what you need to follow, those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I worked for the last 18 years. I worked in self-directed learning environments where that's all kids with and without special needs. And that's all we're doing is letting the children go, oh, I'm really interested in bugs right now.
Yeah.
Great. Immerse yourself in the world of bugs. Go on the walk and find the bugs. Read the book about bugs. Get on the internet and look up pictures of bugs. And they thrive because, oh, guess what? They're learning to read while they're learning about bugs.
Exactly.
And they're learning math because they're trying to figure out how many of these bugs might live in that anthill, or, whatever those things are. If it's their interest, you're not having to drag them along and drag them into learning. They just take off and do it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move into the older youth and the teens.
Yes.
Though that is really, they're really having a hard time. And of course, teenagehood is just never
hard anyway.
Fun. Yes. But now, I have a 21-year-old as well. So yeah, back then teening was hard, but now, she's on her own. So I don't think the pandemic is affecting her as badly as it would be if she was a teen. What kinds of things are you finding for teens right now that are the biggest issues? And how are you trying to help support those things?
Yeah. So first of all, I love working with teens. I usually say they're my favorite, but actually lately couples have been my favorite. So maybe teens have moved to my second favorite. But I think the biggest thing for teens right now is that social isolation. The job of a teenager is to go out in the world and find your place in the world. And it's a hard thing to do. Like you said, being a teenager is hard, but now do it over Zoom.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just so isolating. And of course, most families throughout the last year have tried to do things like having that pod of people. So it might be one or two friends that you get to see, and you just can't see other people except on Zoom, right? And in your classes online. But that's a hard thing, for some teenagers who are less social, it hasn't been a problem.
Yeah.
But I have several teenagers that I work with who are very social people, and it's been excruciating for them. So, finding solutions has been hard because like one teenager, for example, her baby sister was born, I think in April or May. And so they've been completely isolated because they had a brand new baby at home. Going out and just sort of stretching the rules a little bit wasn't an option. And she's probably my most social client. Oh. So for her, it was really, really hard. One of the things that helped was that she was old enough to have a job.
Oh, good.
So she was able to go to work. And I'm sure, she's never said it specifically, but I'm sure she had friends come up to work. That kind of thing. Just like, come up to work while I'm there. We can talk for a minute sort of thing. And if her mother hears this, I'm going to tell her I didn't say that. But, there are things like that, being out in the world to have a job, if there are other kinds of things. And, obviously we're sort of getting to the other side of COVID now. Yeah. I say sort of because we're not there yet, but we're moving that way.
Yeah.
I think that for teens that can be in school face to face and it works for them, because for some kids, this virtual school has been a blessing.
Yeah.
For others, it's been a curse, right? So if they're in the curse category and it's safe for them to be in school, please let them go to school because they need it. They need that interaction with their peers. They need to be face to face. They need to hug people, and hug them with a mask on, but still let them hug the people, right? Yeah. And I think, the most important thing is having people that they can talk to about how they're feeling is so important. And some teenagers feel really comfortable talking to their parents. Others do not. It's not a reflection on you as a parent if your kids don't want to talk to you most of the time. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not. Most of the time it's just them out there doing their individuating that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But if they don't have, if they don't have the parents to talk to, some other adult, because the echo chamber of teenagers is fine, but it doesn't work for everything. So they also need somebody, whether it's an aunt or uncle, a teacher that they really connected with, a soccer coach, whatever it is, just some other adult that can hear them, really listen, and not just be another 15-year-old reflecting back that they're feeling the same way.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? And I'm sure that, I think that, as we build our children early on with confidence, self-esteem, those things, obviously those things carry into teen and to youth. But yeah, during this time, it's like, how do you keep building on those things when you're faced with all of these, everybody is faced with all these new things we haven't faced before. Right. So it's an evolution for all of us. That's certainly the truth. But I'm really glad that they, you do have some clients that are still reaching out to you, coming to you during this time and really getting the support that they need. Because that's the most important thing, is asking for help when you need it. And,
absolutely.
It's, you can be embarrassed or ashamed or any of those things. You can feel all of those things, but really no one will be, feel that embarrassed by, you won't be embarrassed. Nobody's ashamed of you for any of these things. They're just, coping mechanisms for us to be able to learn how to deal with for our rest of our lives.
Right.
So that's really empowering for those.
Yeah. Folks. And it's unfortunate that there is still some stigma around mental health and mental health care. It still exists out there in some families, some cultures, some individuals. But, I always liken it to, if you broke your leg and went to the hospital, no one would tell you were weak.
Exactly.
So if you're struggling and you have anxiety, you're dealing with depression, just don't know how to cope with whatever it is you're dealing with in life, it's no different than going to the emergency room because your leg is broken.
I really like that analogy. And I think that more people need to understand that. And yes, hopefully we are moving into, a better future with less stigmas, less worry about diagnoses, labels, things like that, because supporting who we are is much more important than supporting who we think our children should be. Right.
Absolutely.
It's this weird, I hate to say generational expectations that we have, but I think that we're just all learning constantly, and, we can't be upset with older generations for not having the same information and the same perspectives and things that we are able to have now. So, of
course.
Yeah. Just need to catch them along on our journeys there.
Right.
And, I love that you work with couples. It's so important that couples also realize when you're going through things that, you don't have to do it alone. Tell us some of the things that you find with couples nowadays that might be, probably the same issues, being in the house together all the time.
That I was going to say, that is a big one, right? And even my husband and I found ourselves in that for a minute. He works construction, so once he was able to get out of the house again, it wasn't such a big deal. But for a little bit there, we were home all day together every day. Unfortunately, we have a really solid foundation in our relationship and really great communication skills. So while there were some hiccups, it wasn't anything major. Yeah. But I've also had quite a few other couples who have the opposite experience of that. They're all of a sudden at home and they just want to throttle each other. They are so done being around each other that much. And I mentioned that when it comes to couples, I usually work from the Gottman's work, and they have a whole theory called the sound relationship house. And it's basically sort of layers of foundation that you build to build a strong relationship. And the very bottom one is essentially about being in each other's worlds, right? So just as an example, I don't know everything my husband does all day. right? I have no idea. And honestly, I'd be bored to tears if I did know. He doesn't come home and tell me, oh, we demoed this wall and then we pulled out a toilet and we laid
Amen.
this floor and then these cabinets. I don't need to know all that. And I
No.
don't care. And he knows that I don't care. And it's not that I don't care about him and his work. It's just that level of detail isn't important, right? But I can tell you, oh, he's on a flooring job today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, tomorrow he's doing a demo job downtown, right? I know what's going on in his world. And it's kind of astounding to me sometimes when I talk to couples and they say things like, well, I don't know, she works at the bank. And that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
There's no other information there. We don't talk about work.
Interesting.
Or I don't know what she does when she goes out with her girlfriends. She just does that once a month, right? Well, who are her best girlfriends? I don't know. And I'm just like, okay, but you're married to this person. How do you not know what's going on in their world, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that whole thing that happened where all of a sudden you're in each other's world 24/7 was really eye-opening for couples to be like, oh my gosh, you're here. I actually have to know about your life all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not used to knowing about your life. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Right? And then, of course, fighting over space and, one or both people's trying to work and you're trying to balance childcare if you have children at home and trying to figure out this whole different balance of workload and everything else. So it's just really challenging for people.
It really is. And, I have to say, we've been so lucky because my husband and I, sounds like a lot like you, are best friends. I can't wait to see him when I walk out the door, just in, 20 minutes. And so we love to talk. We love to just talk about everything. And we started out as best friends and then we started dating 17 years ago after that. So that kind of what, it was already set up to be.
Yeah.
And so that's never changed. And it's just been wonderful. But I understand exactly where you're coming from. But for us, it was so funny because when he came home, he also does construction. And when he came home and I realized, well, now we're not having ABA therapy because our son is high risk. So now we've kind of had to do the whole super isolation bubble. And now my husband, who also has Asperger's, is implementing like all of the therapy for our son and, and doing all of this. And now we're seeing this great family dynamic where we really can just kind of build from one another's strengths.
Yeah.
And build each other up on our weaknesses and things, be there for each other. And we're trying to figure out how he can just stay home and not go back to work. So I think that, we've just been really lucky in that sense. But families, couples that are struggling right now, make sure that you are getting, someone else to talk to, bouncing some ideas off of. And, this is me personally, but I have kind of a little exercise that I like to do. I really believe in speaking your world into existence. And so when I come up to situations where maybe I'm having some communication problems with someone, I say some affirmations in my head that go, I love my husband, therefore he loves me. I understand my husband, therefore he understands me, yada, yada, yada. And I just go through this series of acceptance and patience and all of these things that I want him to have for me and I want to give to him. And I think, just like you kind of with your third eye family can understand, it's setting up those energies and those vibrations and just that, law of attraction, basically, to bring all of those good things back. And it works. I'll tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add to that, an exercise that I often give couples to do. And even if I'm only working with an individual, I'll give them this and say, okay, go home and do this with your partner, right? Is every night at the end of the day, take a minute, because it really only takes 1 to 2 minutes, and acknowledge each other for at least 3 things. It can be little things. And usually it starts out as little things because we're just not connected. And so that's why I'm giving you this exercise, right?
Yeah.
And so usually it starts with little things like, thank you for making dinner tonight. Thank you for taking the trash out, and it grows over time because, I don't need to thank you for making dinner every night. I mean, not that I'm not always appreciative if dinner gets made, right? But also there's bigger things than that. Like, thank you for being, this was something I said to my husband last night. Thank you for being so compassionate with our daughter who was
Mhm.
struggling with some issues when we had that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not about something he did. That's how he was being. That was how he was interacting with her and with the rest of us in the conversation. And we do it every night. We've been doing it
I love
for,
that.
gosh, it's been almost 3 years that every single night before bed, we do that. And the only few times that we've missed that in 3 years is when one of us has been really sick and gone to bed early,
Yeah.
or when I was in the hospital for surgery in December. That was it. Other than that, every night we make sure and do that because, as you said, it brings that positivity, but it also has the other person really feel seen and heard and known, because they go, oh, you saw the thing I did.
Yeah.
You saw the way I was acting. You saw that I improved this way that I was doing before that wasn't working, and now I'm doing it and making a real effort, and you noticed the
Yeah.
effort I made.
Yeah, I like how it's a lot about acknowledgement, right? Just really acknowledging your connections with your spouse or your whatever partner. Yeah, that's such good advice to give to people. I love that exercise. I think that we do that throughout our day. I feel like we do that a lot. So
Yeah.
that's a great thing to know that I'm already performing it.
Great.
Yay. I no homework here. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
You always have homework. You're always constantly learning and trying to get better at everything, everything you do.
Well, and the thing too is that also works with your kids, right? We
Yeah.
always have that conversation about catch them being good, so that it's not always about stopping the negative behaviors, but about acknowledging the positive ones.
Yes.
You can do the same thing with your kids. I saw a little blog post a woman had written about wearing 3 rubber bands on her hand, right? And she would have 3 rubber bands on her hand every morning. And she used those because once she acknowledged her child, who was a special needs child who was really struggling, she would say something like, oh my gosh, you remembered to pick up your laundry and put it in the basket. Thank you so much. Then she'd take the rubber band off of one hand and put it onto the other, so that she would always remember to have done that at least 3 times by bedtime. And of course, if she's sitting there at bedtime and there's still 3 rubber bands on the first hand, she's got some catching up to do. I thought it was a really great way to remember it. But also, the more we do that with our kids, they get a sense of pride. They get a sense of accomplishment. They get a sense of being seen and noticed and understood and heard. And it works. So it really works with everybody.
Yeah.
You can go to work in a corporate setting and remember to acknowledge your coworkers or your team 3 times during the day. Guess what? Your productivity is going to go up.
Yes.
Relationships in the office are going to be better. I mean, it really doesn't matter what relationships you use it in. Obviously, the acknowledgements change from your spouse to your children to your coworkers, but it's important and makes a difference no matter where in life you're doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think that like I said before, I'm so social, the poor grocery store people, they all have to know me. I have to say hello to them all. I just want everyone to know that when I'm in that area of wherever they're at, they are special to me. So I like to make people feel that way. And especially the unthanked people. I feel like those people are like the cart pushers or the people that are, washing the windows out at the 7-Eleven, things like that. I always like to stop and just be like, thank you so much for your work, because I feel like those people go unnoticed and unappreciated. And though that's the backbone, like we all, make a part of our society. And if we're not grateful for every single part of it, then we're not doing our part.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm probably a little more extra than a lot of other people are, but that's why I'm here for this purpose. So I love that. And, I think that families, working with families is just so important. Learning how to have family communication, because not only are you communicating great with your children, but you're training them to be adults. You're training them to be parents. And you really want to set them up on a good path for those kinds of things. So get them as many tools as you can. What types of maybe family, when you go to or family settings, what does that look like?
I I mean, it depends a lot on the age of the kids. So if we're dealing with a family with younger children, I'm going to be probably in the playroom. We're going to be doing more play things, right? So we might be doing, I mean, even just the simple game where you have a bunch of balloons and everybody's working together to keep them off the floor, right? Or I have a game that we play called Cotton Ball Wars, where you divide up into 2 teams. And depending on, again, how big the family is, sometimes I'll be the referee and sometimes I'll join in if we need, a certain number of players or whatever. And you're literally just throwing cotton balls at each other until a certain time. And then, the team wins that is the one that has the least cotton balls on their side, right? Because you want to get them over the other side. And, doing things like that, we're learning about teamwork. We're learning about cooperation. We're having fun together. Sometimes for families, the biggest thing that's missing is they don't have fun. Life becomes so much about, focused on the special needs of this particular child, or it's all focused on that nobody's doing chores and we're all, we've got to do the chores and why is no one doing chores and we need a new chore chart and we need, that kind of thing. And it comes drudgery. Yeah. And sometimes just the having fun and the laughter in the session is enough to have a family go, oh, that's right. We actually like each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides everything else, we actually enjoy each other's company. Right. With families with older children, obviously if I ask 2 16-year-olds to throw cotton balls at each other, they're going to roll their eyes at me and that's fine. I do engage teenagers in play like that as much as I can. I push for it as much as I can because I think they need it.
I think inside they really want to anyways.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And, I found that a lot when I was working in mixed age educational environments is you'd come into the playroom and you'd see the 16-year-old on the floor playing Legos with a 6-year-old. And it's great for the 6-year-old because they have this person that, they're connecting with and everything else, but it's so good for the 16-year-old to be playing Lego or playing dolls and whatever it is. They need that kind of play still, even though they like to think they don't.
Just let go of the pressures of things and just be in an innocent kid space where there's no expectations of things or of yourself, right?
Yeah. So. But, like I said, it depends a lot on the age of the kids. And I even have a family I work with that has 2 boys. I think they're 10 and 8 or 10 and 7. I forget exactly how old my kids are sometimes. But and we just spent last week I had each person write down 3 things you really love and appreciate your family and 1 thing you could wish you could change. And then we put them all in a box, mixed them up. And it would intentionally pick out 3 positives and then 1 negative, right? And I had to mark them a particular way so I would know what they were. And what we found was they actually had a lot of things, and there was some overlap, but a lot of different things that they really liked about each other and liked about their family. And there was really only 1 thing, because they all said the same thing that they would change. And it's that they fight too much and they didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And, these boys they're so in tune. I mean, kids they're in tune with what's going on. You might think they don't know what's going on, but if you really listen, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, you've been listening.
Yeah.
And they said the same things that the parents said, which is, we get into this particular dynamic and then we fight and then we don't like that. So what are we going to do about that?
Yeah.
Right. So I gave them the exercise to basically call timeouts on each other when they were starting the stuff that started the fighting cycle, right? And then to stop, breathe, and think before they said any words.
Ooh, I like
that. And I gave the boys permission. And of course, we had to have the parents buy in, right? But gave the boys permission. If you see mom or dad starts to jump in, automatically say something, you are allowed to look at them and say, stop, breathe, think.
Because that's not disrespectful.
Not at all.
And it's teaching kids that not only can they stick up for themselves, but they can also be that part of that family dynamic that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, mom and dad both realized, and I find this with a lot of things that I do with whole families, they both realize that's probably going to piss me off for a second.
Yeah.
When the 7-year-old turns to me and says, stop, breathe, and think, I'm probably going to be a little annoyed for a minute.
Yes.
But the more you do that and the more you train yourself to stop and think before you do whatever the automatic thing was that would normally come out of your mouth, the more positive your interactions are going to be. And you're not going to hear stop, breathe, think from the 7-year-old anymore because you're going to be doing it for yourself.
Yes.
We all need help when we're implementing new habits.
I agree.
And I think empowering the kids in that particular situation to be the ones to help the parents know, okay, yep, you're right. This is a moment where I need to implement those tools we're working on.
Yeah.
Gives the kids a lot of
Love
power,
that.
but mostly it empowers them. And that's what's important.
Absolutely. No, totally important. That reminded me of something. I have a stepdaughter, like I said, she's 21. And so I, raised an entire adult already. And so I have two other ones. And, when I was raising her, I mean, I was really just, when you, pressure I felt was I was raising somebody else's child. So I had to be on my best. She had to be on her best. It was do your best, do your best, do your best. Well, it ended up being way more control than I realized. And now I take back a lot. Step back. No. And luckily we've worked a lot of those things out, and she's forgiven me for all of my life errors, right? Or my errors out of love. But yeah, she now I see, moving forward, I don't want to have that same problems. I don't want to see the same things happening, same patterns happening with my two younger children. And so when I came into being, when one of my children were old enough where I might start raising my voice and getting upset about things, I found this really great tool where as soon as I wanted to yell, I would actually yell, I want to yell. And it would tell myself, okay, I want to yell right now. And then over time, it just totally stopped. And yes. I can't tell you how many years it's been now. I don't even remember, but it's so important that we, as the parents, recognize how we can be better communicators for our families. And really, if you are kind of in a place where, yeah, everything's going fine, and yeah, they fight all the time, but it's not my fault, recheck yourself, sit down, like you said, strategize where these problems are starting from, find the root, find a solution. And if you need help, contact someone like Jen to get some help for your family and teens and children. And yeah, thank you so much for being with me today. I'm going to have you back on because I think that there's so many more topics that we could discuss. We could probably just keep going.
We could have a whole show on dealing with blended families.
Exactly.
Right? Because that in itself is a whole world of different challenges. Yes.
Yeah. Blended families, diagnoses. Oh man, we could go to town with a bunch of stuff. So thank you so much. We will definitely be checking back with you. And I'm just so glad that we made this connection so that we can, support each other moving forward. So thank you so much for being here. And everybody, please go and, check on your kids, check on your communication with your spouse and your family. If it needs help, get yourself some help. Jen, where can we find you and your services?
So the website is Third Eye Family Solutions, third THIRD and IEYE, like up here. And that's the best place to find me. You can schedule a free consultation call with me on the website. I always do consultation calls first because I'm not always the best match, but sometimes I can tell you a better place to go.
I love that. No, that's really great advice for families. And I'm always telling people, don't ever just stick to one person, get a group, get a team for your family to work with, because everybody can offer different types of advice and exercises and things like that. Well, I will make sure to have all of the links down in the description so you can go ahead and find everything you need to. And just want to wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you so much again for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Kind of guy that keeps you warm at night when you are cold. I'll grab some blankets from my bed, wrap them around your chest, now pull you close. We'll flip some channels to find out there's nothing on right now to ease your mind. Sit back, relax, there is no rush, no need to speed things up. All we have is time. this moment last. To make this moment last. To make this moment last. So let's make this the kind of love that we've been dreaming of when we sleep at night. We'll get a little house to live in, have a couple kids, and we'll sleep tight. 'Cause baby, all we really need are just a couple things to stay alive. And everything else in between, just trust my heart, you'll see. We're slowly coming. Time to think about the future, forget about the past. Time to figure out a way to make this moment last. To make this moment last. To make this moment last. Sunrises, sunsets, I won't let you forget that I need you. Spring comes as spring goes, forever you will know that I love you. Sunrises, sunsets, I won't let you forget that I need you. Spring comes as spring goes, forever you will know that I love you.